In 1966, the United States government approved a single budget line that stunned even seasoned economists. $5.9 billion for one agency. That agency was NASA. And over 10 years, the full Apollo program consumed $25.4 billion, over $200 billion in today's money.
Welcome to Vaulted Era, the hidden stories behind money, power, and history. To understand where that money went and what it actually built, we need to go back to the very beginning of the space race and the system of power that drove it. When Sputnik beeped its first signal from orbit in October 1957, it didn't just scare the American public, it terrified the American money machine. Within months, Congress passed the National Defense Education Act and funneled hundreds of millions into science, engineering, and a new kind of industrial power. President Eisenhower had warned the nation about exactly this moment, the rise of a military-industrial complex controlling both the money and the mission. Companies like Grumman, North American Aviation, Boeing, and IBM became the primary recipients of Apollo's $25 billion, a system structure unlike anything seen before in American history. 400,000 people worked on Apollo, thousands of companies, hundreds of subcontractors, a power network built on government money and Cold War fear. But here is the question that history forgot to ask. When the program ended in 1972, what happened to the technology and the power structures that $25 billion had created? The answer reveals one of the most compelling hidden stories of money, power, and systemic suppression in modern American history. Apollo generated over 1,800 technology spin-offs documented by NASA itself. But of those, only a fraction ever reached public markets. The rest, filed, patented, and quietly shelved. Why would a publicly funded program, paid for by American tax dollars, produce technologies that the public never got to use? The answer lies in who controlled the patents. Under the Space Act of 1958, NASA could grant exclusive licenses to private contractors, meaning a company could take publicly funded research and lock it behind a corporate wall. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate system structure designed to ensure that the military-industrial companies who built Apollo also profited from everything Apollo created. The money built the technology, the power decided who owned it, and the system locked it away the rest. This is the story Vaulted Era exists to tell. Let us begin with the most revolutionary forgotten invention of the Apollo era, a machine so advanced that engineers decades later would call it one of the greatest leaps in computing history. In 1961, MIT's Instrumentation Laboratory received a contract to build the guidance computer for the Apollo spacecraft. The team had never built anything remotely like it. The Apollo Guidance Computer, the AGC, weighed 70 pounds, ran on 4 kilobytes of memory, and successfully navigated human beings to the surface of the moon. To put that in perspective, your smartphone holds more computing power than existed in the entire world's combined computing infrastructure in 1969. The AGC was the first computer ever to use integrated circuits at scale, the same integrated circuit technology that became the foundation of every modern computer chip. Fairchild Semiconductor supplied those chips. They charged NASA $20 per unit in 1962. By 1968, due to mass production driven by NASA's demand, the price dropped to $2, then to cents. The entire consumer electronics revolution, from pocket calculators to personal computers, was financed not by Silicon Valley venture capital, but by NASA's Apollo money. But the AGC's software was equally revolutionary. Margaret Hamilton, then 29 years old, led the team that wrote 145,000 lines of code entirely by hand. When an error should have aborted the lunar landing of Apollo 11, Hamilton's priority interrupt system overwrote it, and Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon 4 minutes later. Yet for years, Hamilton received no credit, no patent royalties, and no public recognition. The system structure of 1969 simply didn't account for software as intellectual property. The companies that licensed AGC technology, primarily defense contractors, went on to generate billions in computing patents. The woman who made it possible received a medal in 2016. This is not accidental. This is how power concentrates inside system structures. The money funds innovation, the powerful capture the returns, and history forgets the builders. The AGC story is one chapter, but the story of Apollo's forgotten water technology is, if anything, even more consequential and even more deliberately buried. The problem of keeping astronauts alive in space required NASA to solve one of humanity's oldest challenges. How do you create safe drinking water from nothing? NASA's answer in the 1960s was silver ion purification, a technology so effective it could destroy 99.9% of all bacteria in water without chemicals, heat, or energy. By 1972, NASA had filed patents on silver ion water purification systems capable of providing clean water to communities across the developing world at almost zero cost. Here is where the story of money and power intersects with history. The water purification industry, chlorine-based, chemical-dependent, was a multi-billion-dollar global business. Chlorine manufacturers had extensive lobbying networks in Washington. When NASA's silver ion technology threatened to displace them, the political pressure was immediate and quiet. NASA's water technology was quietly licensed to a single contractor, Umpqua Research Company, on highly restrictive terms. Mass production was never authorized. Today, 2.2 billion people still lack access to safe drinking water, according to the World Health Organization. A technology that could help solve this problem has been available since 1972. The Apollo investment was $25 billion of public money. The return was a technology capable of saving millions of lives. The system structure decided that return belonged to stockholders, not people. This is the hidden ledger of the Apollo era, a balance sheet that history books never printed and financial networks never broadcast. But if water purification was suppressed by industry, the story of Apollo's fire-resistant materials reveals an even darker intersection of money, power, and human cost. January 27, 1967, 3 astronauts, Gus Grissom, Ed White, Roger Chaffee, died inside Apollo 1 during a launch pad test. The capsule's interior materials ignited in a pure oxygen environment. In response, NASA and contractor North American Aviation developed an entirely new class of fire-resistant materials, including modified nylon, fiberglass composites, and fire-blocking foams.
These materials were revolutionary. They could potentially transform aircraft interiors, public transport, building construction, anywhere fire safety mattered, which is to say, everywhere. Yet the commercialization of these materials was extraordinarily slow. Airlines dragged their heels for years. Building codes took decades to incorporate new standards. Why? Existing fire-retardant industries, chemical companies, insulation manufacturers had no interest in being displaced by a NASA spin-off that required entirely different supply chains. The FAA finally mandated fire-blocking seat cushions in commercial aircraft, but only in 1984, 17 years after the technology existed, after hundreds of preventable deaths. Today, the flame-resistant materials developed through NASA's Apollo budget protect firefighters, race car drivers, and military personnel across the world. The journey took 50 years. This is the paradox of the Apollo system structure. Technologies built to save lives in space spent decades fighting for the right to save lives on Earth. Now we arrive at the most financially consequential forgotten technology of the Apollo era, the fuel cell, a device that generates electricity by combining hydrogen and oxygen with water as its only byproduct. Fuel cells powered the Apollo command and service module throughout every mission. They were reliable, efficient, and produced so little waste that astronauts drank the water they generated. Pratt & Whitney developed these fuel cells under a NASA contract. By 1970, they had a working system capable of powering vehicles, buildings, and potentially entire city grids. The oil and gas industry in 1970 was generating $200 billion annually. A technology that could replace oil-based electricity was not a welcome development for those holding the power. Congressional records from 1971 to 1975 show repeated attempts by NASA to secure additional fuel cell research funding and repeated quiet defeats in appropriations subcommittees. The money was there, the technology existed, the system structure, oil lobbying, entrenched energy utility interests, and political relationships prevented its development for decades. Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai today sell commercial hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. The technology they use traces directly to work funded by American taxpayers through NASA's Apollo budget. In 2023, the global hydrogen fuel cell market was valued at $4.5 billion and is projected to reach $28 billion by 2030. America built this technology, then waited for others to commercialize it. The hidden history of Apollo's fuel cell is not a story of failure. It is a story of deliberate delay, of a system structure choosing oil profit over public benefit. And this pattern, public money, public risk, private profit, delayed public benefit, is not unique to fuel cells. It is the defining financial structure of the Apollo era. By 1972, the Apollo program was over. The last astronauts left the moon in December of that year. The $25 billion machine began to dismantle itself, but not entirely. The contractors who built Apollo, Boeing, Grumman, North American Rockwell, IBM, pivoted their Apollo divisions into defense, aerospace, and emerging technology contracts. The government offices that managed Apollo became the bureaucratic infrastructure for the shuttle program, the DoD, and eventually the Internet. ARPANET was funded by the same military-industrial budget system. This is the genius and the tragedy of the Apollo system structure. It created the most productive innovation engine in human history and then privatized the output. NASA's Technology Transfer Program exists to this day, tasked with ensuring Apollo era and subsequent spin-offs reach the public. Its annual budget is approximately $9.4 million. Contrast this with the lobbying budgets of the aerospace and defense industry, $107 million in 2022 alone. For every dollar spent giving technology to the public, $11 were spent influencing who controlled it. This is the hidden financial architecture of American innovation, a story that explains not just the Apollo era, but the structure of every major publicly funded technology, from the internet to the vaccine. The moon landing is taught in history as a triumph of American ambition, and it was, but it was also a $25 billion demonstration of who controls the returns when public money builds the future. 12 men walked on the moon, 400,000 built the machine that got them there, and almost none of them controlled what happened to the technology they created. The woman who sewed Neil Armstrong's spacesuit, Eleanor Foraker, was paid $10.35 an hour. The company that made the suit, ILC Dover, held the patent. This is the system structure of history. Understanding this structure is not about grievance, it is about knowledge, because the same structure governs AI, green energy, and biotechnology being built with public money today. If you understand how Apollo's $25 billion was structured, who controlled the money, who held the power, who wrote the history, you understand how the world is still being built right now. The forgotten technologies of the Apollo era are not truly lost. They exist in patent archives, in contractor vaults, in suppressed research reports buried in federal filing systems. Scratch-resistant lenses, Apollo. Memory foam, Apollo. Cordless power tools developed for the lunar drill kit, courtesy of Black & Decker and NASA. The invisible hand of Apollo touches nearly every sector of the modern economy, from healthcare imaging to water filtration to weather forecasting satellites above your head right now. This is the financial legacy that no spreadsheet fully captures, the compound return on public investment in deep science and exploration. The Apollo program may be the greatest ROI in American history. NASA itself has estimated that for every $1 invested in the Apollo program, the American economy received $7 to $14 in return. That is a return rate most investment funds would call impossible. The tragedy of forgotten Apollo technologies is not that they were lost, it is that they were delayed, that system structures of money and power chose private timelines over public urgency. The $25 billion question is not what Apollo cost, it is what Apollo could have returned if its technologies had been liberated rather than locked, distributed rather than concentrated. The space race ended, but the race between public benefit and private power, the race to decide who controls what innovation builds, that race never stopped. It just changed arenas. History is not what happened. History is what was recorded, and what was recorded was always chosen by those who held the power to do the recording. The engineers who built the Apollo guidance computer, the women who sewed the spacesuits, the scientists who purified water for astronauts, they wrote history with their hands. Power wrote it with their pens.
At Vaulted Era, this is the kind of history we believe deserves to be told, not to assign blame, but to illuminate how many power and the system structures shape the world most people never get to see. The moon is still there, the technology is still locked away, and the stories, the real stories of money, power, and the history are still waiting. Subscribe Vaulted Era. We will keep opening the vault. Wait for our next vault to be on. The history and design behind the US dollar's symbol. Keep watching.